The moment Tyler Rivas hit the mat, the entire dojo went silent. Not the respectful silence of a clean point scored, the suffocating kind that follows a public execution. Because the man sprawled on his back, gasping like a fish pulled from water, wasn't some challenger from another school. He was their sensei, their champion. And the woman standing over him, expression unchanged, wasn't even supposed to be here. She was the janitor, the one nobody looked at twice. The deaf woman who emptied trash cans and mopped floors while everyone else claimed glory. Until tonight, when she made Tyler Rivas beg. Stay with me until the end of this story, and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this journey travels. The fluorescent lights of Sunset Valley Martial Arts hummed their monotonous song every evening at 6:15, right when the advanced class began filtering in. Nia Brooks had learned the rhythm by heart, not through sound but through the vibrations in the wooden floor beneath her worn sneakers, the patterns of movement, the way shadows shifted as bodies filled the space. She pushed her cleaning cart along the back wall, staying invisible the way she'd perfected over 3 years. Invisible was safe. Invisible meant people didn't ask questions about why a woman with her training spent her evenings scrubbing other people's sweat off vinyl mats. Invisible meant she could exist in the space between her past and whatever came next, if anything ever did. Tyler Rivas entered like he owned not just the dojo, but the air everyone breathed inside it. 28 years old, third-degree black belt, regional champion 2 years running, and he made damn sure nobody forgot it. His gi was always pristine white, crisp enough to cut paper. His movements were sharp, precise, and theatrical. He commanded attention the way some people commanded armies. "Line up!" His voice carried authority wrapped in charisma. The students scrambled into formation, youngest to oldest, belts arranged in perfect hierarchy. Tyler walked the line slowly, adjusting a stance here, correcting a bow there, soaking in the reverence like sunlight. Nia sprayed disinfectant on the windows, keeping her back turned. She'd learned to read Tyler without looking at him directly. The way his energy filled a room was unmistakable, demanding, suffocating in its intensity. He was talented, genuinely skilled. But talent, without humility, was just ego wearing a uniform. The class moved through warm-ups. Nia worked her way toward the supply closet, her movements efficient and practiced. She'd timed her cleaning route to minimize interaction, to exist in the peripheral vision of people focused on their own growth, their own victories. That's when she felt it. A different vibration. Lighter, uncertain. A child's footsteps. She turned slightly, catching movement near the entrance. A boy, maybe 9 or 10, stood just inside the doorway with his mother. He was small for his age, with dark curly hair and eyes that held both excitement and terror in equal measure. His hands moved in quick, nervous gestures. ASL, American Sign Language. Nia's breath caught. She recognized that mixture of hope and fear, the desperate want to belong somewhere you're not sure you're welcome. The boy's mother approached Tyler during the water break. Nia couldn't hear the conversation, but she didn't need to. She read it in body language, in the mother's pleading gestures toward her son, in Tyler's increasingly rigid posture. She moved closer, pretending to wipe down equipment, positioning herself where she could see their hands, their lips. "Mrs. Santos, I understand your situation," Tyler said, his smile practiced and hollow. "But Leo would be better served in a specialized program. We run a competitive dojo here. The other students, he just wants to learn," Mrs. Santos interrupted, her voice trembling with restrained emotion. "He's been talking about nothing else for weeks. Martial arts doesn't require hearing. It's visual. It requires focus," Tyler cut in, his tone hardening. "And frankly, accommodating a deaf student would be a distraction from the curriculum. There are programs designed specifically for children with special needs. I can provide some recommendations." "He doesn't have special needs," Mrs. Santos said, each word precise and sharp. "He's deaf. That's not the same thing." Tyler's jaw tightened. Several parents had stopped talking, their attention drifting toward the confrontation. He was losing control of the room's focus, and Nia could see him calculating, deciding how to reassert his authority. Leo stood near the door, watching his mother's face, reading the tension in her shoulders. His hands had stopped moving. He knew. Children always know when adults are deciding their fate. Nia's hands tightened on the cleaning cloth. She should stay out of it. Getting involved meant being seen, meant questions, meant the past she'd buried might claw its way back to the surface. She should finish her work, collect her paycheck, go home to her silent apartment and her silent life. But Leo's expression, that mixture of hope dying in real time, it cracked something in her chest she thought had calcified years ago. She set down the cloth and walked forward. Every step felt like crossing a battlefield. The room's energy shifted. Students turned. Parents looked up. Tyler's eyes narrowed as Nia approached. This woman who cleaned their floors, who existed in their space, but not in their awareness. Nia moved past Tyler, a deliberate choice that made his shoulders stiffen, and walked directly to Leo. She knelt down to his eye level, her movement slow and gentle, and began to sign. "Hi. My name is Nia. What's yours?" Leo's eyes went wide. He glanced at his mother, then back at Nia, then his hands flew up in excited response. "Leo, you know sign language? Do you train here? Are you a teacher?" "I work here," Nia signed back, her expression warm. "I've been watching the classes for a long time. You want to learn martial arts? More than anything." Leo's signs were enthusiastic, big movements full of energy. "I want to be strong. I want to protect people. Like a superhero." Nia smiled, the first genuine smile that had crossed her face in months. "That's a good reason. The best reason, actually." Behind her, Tyler cleared his throat. "Excuse me, but I'm in the middle of a conversation with Mrs. Santos." Nia stood slowly and turned to face him. She signed as she spoke, her voice rusty from disuse but clear enough. "You were telling her that her son doesn't belong here." The room went still. Several people leaned forward. They'd never heard Nia speak before. Tyler's face flushed. "I was explaining that specialized programs might be more appropriate. You were rejecting him because accommodating him requires effort you're unwilling to provide," Nia interrupted, her tone flat and factual. "Which is your right as an instructor. But let's be honest about what this is." "I don't think you understand the complexities of running a competitive martial arts program," Tyler said, his voice rising slightly. "There are safety concerns, communication barriers." "I understand perfectly," Nia said. She kept her hands visible, her signs clear for Leo to follow. "I understand that you're uncomfortable because you don't know how to teach him, that his presence challenges your methods. That inclusion requires adaptation, and adaptation is harder than exclusion." Tyler's eyes flashed with anger. "Who the hell do you think you are? You're the janitor. You mop floors and empty trash. You don't get to lecture me about teaching methodology." "You're right," Nia said calmly. "I am the janitor, and from what I've observed mopping those floors, you're a talented martial artist with impressive technique and no understanding of why you're really here." The air in the dojo crystallized. Parents exchanged glances. Students stood frozen, unsure whether to intervene or watch this unfold. Mrs. Santos stepped forward, her hand on Nia's arm. "Thank you, but you don't have to—" "She doesn't have to do anything," Tyler interrupted, his composure cracking. "In fact, she can finish her cleaning and leave. This is between me and my students' families." Nia met his gaze steadily. She saw it clearly now, the fragility beneath the confidence, the ego protecting a deep insecurity. Tyler Rivas had built his identity on being the best in the room, and anyone who threatened that position became an enemy to be defeated or dismissed. "Leo," Nia signed, turning back to the boy, "your mother brought you here because she believes in you. That matters more than any instructor's limitation. Don't let someone else's fear make you doubt your own strength." Leo nodded solemnly, his eyes shining. Tyler laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "This is unbelievable. The cleaning lady thinks she can evaluate my teaching. Tell me, what exactly qualifies you to have an opinion about martial arts? Have you ever even been on a mat?" Nia didn't answer. She just looked at him, her expression neutral, and for a moment Tyler seemed unsettled by her silence. "That's what I thought," he said, recovering his bravado. "All respect to whatever YouTube videos you've watched, but running a dojo requires actual experience, actual credentials, actual—" "Sensei Tyler." The interruption came from Marcus Chen, a senior student and brown belt who'd trained at Sunset Valley for 6 years. "Maybe we should discuss this privately." "There's nothing to discuss privately," Tyler snapped. Mrs. Santos, I've given you my answer. I'm sorry, but Leo isn't a good fit for our program. I'm happy to provide recommendations for... I'll train him, Naya said quietly. The words hung in the air like smoke. Tyler turned slowly. Excuse me? I said I'll train him, Naya repeated. If Mrs. Santos agrees. After hours, when the dojo is empty. I'll teach him the fundamentals, proper form, safety, discipline, everything you claim to value. You'll... Tyler started laughing again, but it sounded forced now, desperate. You'll train him, the janitor. You'll train a student in my dojo. It's not your dojo, Nia said. You're an employee, same as me. The owner's Frank Martinez. I can ask him if he has any objection to me using the space during my work hours. Tyler's face went crimson. You have no qualifications, no certification, no insurance. You can't just... This is insane. Then prove it, Nia said simply. The words settled over the room like snow. What? Tyler's voice had gone very quiet. Prove I'm unqualified, Nia said. Step on the mat with me. If I can't defend myself, you're right. I have no business teaching anyone anything, but if I can... She let the sentence hang unfinished. You're challenging me to a match? Tyler's expression shifted between disbelief and something darker. You're challenging me? Do you have any idea how ridiculous? I'm offering you the chance to publicly demonstrate that you're right, and I'm wrong, Nia corrected. Tomorrow night, after your advanced class, in front of anyone who wants to watch. If you win, I'll apologize to Mrs. Santos and Leo, and I'll acknowledge I overstepped. But if I win, Leo gets a fair chance. He stays in your class, and you actually teach him instead of treating him like a liability. Mrs. Santos made a small sound of protest. Nia, you don't have to... Yes, Tyler said, cutting her off. His eyes glittered with something dangerous. Yes, absolutely. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. I'll even make it easy on you. We'll go light contact, basic sparring rules. I wouldn't want to actually hurt someone who doesn't know what they're doing. Full contact, Naya said. Competitive rules. Winner by submission, knockout, or referee stoppage, unless you're not comfortable with that. The challenge in her words was unmistakable. Tyler's hands clenched into fists. You have no idea what you just did, he said softly. No idea. Tomorrow night, Naya repeated. She turned to Mrs. Santos and Leo. I'm sorry you had to witness this, but your son deserves better than being turned away without a real reason. She walked back to her cleaning cart, retrieved the cloth she'd set down, and continued working as if nothing had happened. Behind her, chaos erupted. Students talking over each other, parents pulling out phones, Tyler barking orders to get everyone back in formation. But Nia had already tuned it out. She focused on the simple, repetitive motions of cleaning, the familiar rhythm that had sustained her through 3 years of deliberate invisibility. Tomorrow night, she would be visible again. Tomorrow night, she would step back into the world she'd fled. The question burning in her chest wasn't whether she could win. She knew she could. The question was whether winning would destroy the fragile peace she'd built from the ruins of her old life, and whether that destruction would be worth it for the sake of one child who deserved a chance to belong. She thought of Leo's excitement, his hope, the way his hands had moved with such joy when he talked about wanting to be strong enough to protect people. Worth it, she decided. Whatever the cost, this was worth it. The night air bit cold as Nia locked up the dojo at 10:30. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This is Marcus Chen from class. I got your number from the employee directory. I need to talk to you before tomorrow night. Tyler is spreading the word everywhere. People are coming from 3 other dojos. This is going to be a circus. Are you sure you know what you're doing? Nia stared at the message for a long moment. Then she typed back, I know exactly what I'm doing. She hit send and pocketed the phone. The truth was more complicated. She knew what she was doing physically. Her body remembered the techniques even after years away from competition. But emotionally, psychologically, she was walking back into the arena that had taken everything from her. The last time she'd competed, the last time she'd allowed herself to be seen as anything other than invisible, she'd been at the top of her game. Paralympic judo champion, gold medalist, the deaf girl from South Brooklyn who'd proved every doubter wrong. Then came the accident. Then came the loss. Then came the grief so profound it had swallowed her whole. She disappeared into cleaning jobs and silence because silence was safe, because being invisible meant never risking that kind of pain again. But tonight, watching Tyler dismiss Leo with such casual cruelty, something had broken open inside her. Or maybe something had finally healed enough to function again. Either way, tomorrow night she would step back onto a mat in front of witnesses. She would be seen, and once people knew who she really was, there would be no going back to invisible. Her hands trembled slightly as she walked to her car. Not from fear of Tyler, she'd faced opponents far more dangerous, but from the terrifying possibility that after tomorrow, she might have to be alive again. Really alive. Not just existing in the quiet spaces between other people's victories. She thought of Leo's face, his hands signing with such hope. I want to be strong. I want to protect people. Yeah, she thought. Me too, kid. Me too. By the next evening, word had spread like wildfire. Nia arrived for her shift at 6 and found the parking lot already filling up. Not just with regular students, but with people she'd never seen before. Competitors from other schools, former students returning to watch, even a few local sports bloggers who'd caught wind of the story. Inside, the energy was electric. Tyler was holding court near the front desk, surrounded by supporters, playing up his role as the defending champion against an absurd challenge. He'd changed into competition gear, a black GI with his name embroidered in gold, and moved with the easy confidence of someone who'd never lost in front of a home crowd. Nia changed in the bathroom, pulling on the plain white gi she'd kept buried in her closet. It still fit, though it smelled like mothballs and memory. She tied her belt, faded black, earned a lifetime ago, and studied herself in the mirror. She looked older than she remembered, 34 now, with lines around her eyes from squinting instead of asking people to repeat themselves. Her hair was pulled back severely, no nonsense. She looked like what she'd become, someone who'd learned to take up as little space as possible. Tonight that changes, she thought. When she emerged from the bathroom, the dojo had transformed. Someone had set up chairs around the perimeter of the main mat. Every seat was filled with more people standing along the walls. The energy was carnival-like, excited, hungry for spectacle. Leo and Mrs. Santos sat in the front row. The boy's eyes went wide when he saw Nia, and he signed quickly, "You look like a real fighter." Nia managed a small smile and signed back, "I'm just going to show Sensei Tyler that different doesn't mean less capable." Frank Martinez, the dojo owner, pushed through the crowd. He was a stocky man in his 50s, retired from competitive martial arts, but still radiating authority. "Nia, what the hell is going on? Tyler says you challenged him to a match?" "He asked me to prove I was qualified to have an opinion about teaching," Nia said calmly. "I'm proving it." Frank ran a hand through his thinning hair. "Look, I don't know what your background is, but Tyler's a professional competitor. This could get serious. I need you to sign a waiver. Acknowledge the risks." "I'll sign whatever you need," Nia said. "But this happens tonight." Frank studied her for a long moment, then shook his head. "Your funeral, literally, maybe. Tyler's been riding high since his last tournament win. His ego's the size of Manhattan, but his skill backs it up." "I know," Nia said. "I've been watching him train for 3 years." That seemed to unsettle Frank more than if she'd boasted about her own abilities. He handed her a clipboard with a liability waiver. Nia signed it without reading, her hand steady. 5-minute rounds, Frank said, slipping into his role as referee. "Competitive rules, full contact, winner by submission, knockout, or technical stoppage. Understood?" Both Nia and Tyler nodded. Tyler stepped onto the mat, rolling his shoulders, playing to the crowd. "Last chance to back out gracefully," he called across to Nia. "I'll even let you keep your job. Just admit you spoke out of turn, and we'll call it even." Nia stepped onto the mat without responding. She could feel every eye in the room on her, could sense the collective expectation that this would be over quickly, embarrassingly, a cautionary tale about knowing your place. She bowed formally to Tyler. He returned it with exaggerated respect, getting laughs from his supporters. Frank positioned himself between them. "Fighters ready?" Tyler dropped into his stance, aggressive, forward-weighted, built for explosive offense. Nia settled into hers, balanced, patient, maddeningly neutral. Fight! Frank's voice cut through the noise. Tyler didn't waste time. He came in fast, testing her with a quick jab combination, trying to gauge her reactions. Nia slipped the strikes easily, not countering, just observing. He pressed harder, mixing high and low attacks, trying to overwhelm her with speed and volume. The crowd began to murmur as Nia evaded everything, her footwork precise, her distance management perfect. Tyler's jaw tightened. He shot in for a takedown, a clean technique properly executed. Nia sprawled, stuffed it, and circled away before he could establish grips. The murmur grew louder. This wasn't going the way anyone expected. Tyler reset, and Nia could see it, the first flash of uncertainty crossing his features. He'd assumed overwhelming her would be easy. Now he was being forced to actually fight, to problem solve, to work. He came in again, this time more calculated, setting up his attacks with feints. Nia read every one of them. She could see the patterns in his movement, the tells in his weight distribution. 3 years of watching him train meant she knew his game better than he knew himself. She began to counter now, not aggressively, but precisely. A quick snap kick to check his forward momentum. A perfectly timed parry that left him slightly off balance. Small adjustments that began to disrupt his rhythm. Tyler's breathing got heavier. He was working now, burning energy and landing nothing of consequence. "Come on," someone shouted from his corner. "Stop playing around." But Nia could see he wasn't playing. He was trying, really trying, and it wasn't enough. She waited for her moment, that instant when frustration would override discipline, when his ego would demand he do something dramatic to reassert dominance. It came 90 seconds into the round. Tyler lunged forward with a wild haymaker, committed too heavily, his base compromised. Nia moved like water. She slipped inside the strike, secured double underhooks, and executed a textbook throw, a clean ippon seoi nage that sent Tyler sailing over her hip. He hit the mat hard. Before he could recover, Nia had transitioned to side control, then to mount, her movements fluid and inevitable. Tyler bucked and bridged, trying to escape, but Nia's weight distribution was perfect. She blocked every attempt, stayed heavy, stayed patient. Then she moved for the finish. Her arms snaked around his neck, securing the rear naked choke with brutal efficiency. Tyler's hands flew up to defend, but her position was already locked in. "Tap!" Frank was moving closer, watching carefully. Tyler refused. His face reddened, his struggles becoming more desperate. Nia didn't crank the choke. She didn't need to. She just held it, letting him feel the inevitability, letting him understand that this was over. His hand slapped the mat 3 times, the universal signal of submission. Nia released immediately and stood up. Tyler rolled onto his side, gasping, his face a mask of shock and humiliation. The dojo had gone completely silent. Then Leo started clapping, small hands coming together in thunderous approval. Mrs. Santos joined him, then Marcus Chen, then others, until the applause built into something Nia hadn't heard in years. Genuine respect. She walked to the edge of the mat and bowed formally to the crowd. When she turned back, Tyler was on his feet, his expression twisted with rage and embarrassment. "You," he started, then stopped, seeming to realize everyone was watching. How did you? 3 years, Nia said quietly. 3 years of watching you train while I cleaned around you. 3 years of studying every technique, every pattern, every habit. You're talented, Tyler, genuinely talented. But you've been teaching in an echo chamber of your own ego for so long that you forgot the first principle of martial arts. Which is? His voice was barely a whisper. That strength without humility is just violence waiting for an excuse. She held his gaze for one more moment, then walked off the mat toward Leo and Mrs. Santos. The boy was signing frantically. "That was amazing. You were so fast. Can you really teach me like that?" Nia knelt down to his level. "Better. I'll teach you better than that. Because I'll teach you why we fight, not just how." Behind her, she could feel Tyler's stare burning into her back, could sense the questions rippling through the crowd. Tomorrow there would be more questions. Tomorrow people would dig into who she really was, where she'd come from, why she'd been hiding. But tonight, she'd done what she came to do. She'd fought for one child's right to belong. And for the first time in 3 years, Nia Brooks felt like maybe, just maybe, She deserved to belong too. The applause was still echoing in Naya's ears when Tyler pushed through the crowd and disappeared into the back office. The slam of the door punctuated his exit, a final exclamation point on his humiliation. Frank Martinez stood in the center of the mat, looking between where Tyler had vanished and where Nia knelt with Leo, his expression caught somewhere between confusion and calculation. "All right, show's over," Frank announced, clapping his hands together. "Regular classes resume tomorrow. Everyone who doesn't train here, time to head out." The crowd began to disperse reluctantly, people clustering in small groups, their voices buzzing with speculation. Nia could feel their stares, could see phones being pulled out, videos being reviewed, messages being typed. By morning, footage of the match would be everywhere. Mrs. Santos touched Nia's shoulder gently. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what you risked to do that, but thank you." "You don't have to thank me," Nia signed and spoke simultaneously. "Leo deserves a chance. Every child does." "Will you really teach him?" Mrs. Santos asked. "I can pay you. Not much, but—" "No payment necessary," Nia interrupted. "Consider it part of my job duties. I'm here anyway." Leo was practically vibrating with excitement, his hands moving so quickly Nia had to ask him to slow down. When he did, his question was simple and profound. "Are you a superhero?" Nia smiled despite herself. "No, I'm just someone who remembers what it's like to be told you don't belong." Marcus Chen approached cautiously, his brown belt tied with the precision of someone who took tradition seriously. "Nia, can we talk? Just for a minute?" She nodded and stood, gesturing for Mrs. Santos to give her a moment. Marcus led her to a quiet corner near the equipment storage. "That was incredible," he said quietly. "But you need to know, Tyler's not going to let this go. I've trained with him for 4 years. I've seen him lose matches before, but never like this. Never in his own dojo, in front of his students and half the martial arts community in the city." "He agreed to the terms," Nia said. "He lost. That should be the end of it." Marcus shook his head. "Tyler doesn't process loss the way normal people do. He'll obsess over this. He'll pick apart every second of that match, looking for ways to prove it was a fluke, or you cheated, or, I don't know, something. He needs to be the best. It's not just ego, it's pathological." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying be careful. And also, Marcus hesitated, then continued. "I recognize some of those techniques. That seoi neige, the way you transition to the choke. That's high-level judo. Olympic level. Who are you?" Nia had known this question was coming. She'd known it the moment she stepped onto the mat. But hearing it spoken aloud still made her chest tighten. "Someone who used to compete," she said carefully. "A long time ago." "How long ago? 'Cause you moved like someone who never stopped training." "I haven't trained in 3 years," Nia said. "But some things you don't forget." Marcus studied her face, clearly wanting to ask more, but something in her expression stopped him. "Okay. Well, whoever you used to be, you just became a legend tonight. People are going to want to know your story." "I don't have a story," Nia said. "I have a job. I cleaned the dojo and now I'm going to teach a kid who deserves a chance. That's it." "If you say so." Marcus didn't sound convinced. "But fair warning, by tomorrow morning, someone's going to figure out who you are. The internet doesn't forget champions." He walked away, leaving Nia alone with that uncomfortable truth. She'd been Nia Brooks the janitor for 3 years, invisible and safe. Tomorrow she might wake up as Nia Brooks, the Paralympic gold medalist, the prodigy who'd vanished from competition, the mystery everyone wanted to solve. The office door opened. Tyler emerged, his face carefully neutral, his gym bag slung over one shoulder. He'd changed back into street clothes. When he saw Nia, he stopped. For a long moment, they just looked at each other across the emptying dojo. Then Tyler crossed the distance between them, his movements controlled but tense. "I want a rematch," he said quietly. 2 weeks. Same rules. I wasn't prepared tonight. I underestimated you. That won't happen again." "No," Nia said simply. Tyler blinked. "What?" "I said no. This wasn't about proving I'm better than you. It was about proving Leo deserves a chance. You lost. He stays. That was the agreement." "You humiliated me in front of my students," Tyler said, his voice dropping dangerously low. in front of the entire community. You don't get to just walk away from that. I'm not walking away from anything, Nia replied. I'm staying right here, teaching Leo, doing my job. You're the one who needs to decide what comes next. What's that supposed to mean? It means you can spend the next 2 weeks obsessing over revenge, or you can spend them becoming a better teacher. The choice is yours. Tyler's jaw clenched. You think you know me? You think watching me teach for 3 years while you pushed a mop around gives you insight into who I am? I think you're talented and insecure, Nia said calmly. I think you built your identity on being the best, and when someone challenges that, you experience it as an existential threat. I think you dismiss people who don't fit your narrow definition of what a martial artist should look like, because including them would require you to expand your understanding, and that's terrifying. Tyler's face flushed. You don't know anything about me. I know you told a 9-year-old boy he didn't belong here because he's deaf, Nia said. I know that was easier for you than learning to teach differently. And I know that right now you're more concerned with your wounded pride than with the fact that you crushed a child's dream to protect your ego. How dare you? See, I dare because someone needs to, Nia interrupted. You're a good martial artist, Tyler. You could be a great teacher, but not until you understand that strength isn't about dominating everyone around you. It's about lifting them up. She turned to walk away, but Tyler grabbed her arm. The grip wasn't violent, but it was firm, demanding. Let go, Nia said quietly. Not until you listen, Tyler insisted. You don't get to come into my space, embarrass me, lecture me, and then just dismiss me. You deserve exactly what everyone else deserves, Nia said, her voice still calm but with an edge of steel beneath it. Respect when you earn it, consequences when you don't. Now let go of my arm. Tyler held on for one more second, his pride warring with his common sense. Then he released her, stepping back. This isn't over, he said. It is for tonight, Nia replied. Go home, Tyler. Process this however you need to. But tomorrow, Leo comes to class, and you teach him with the same dedication you'd give any other student. That's not negotiable. She walked away before he could respond, returning to where Mrs. Santos and Leo waited. Behind her, she heard Tyler's footsteps heading toward the exit, each one heavy with barely contained fury. Frank Martinez emerged from his office, his expression troubled. Nia, can you stay for a few minutes? We need to talk. Mrs. Santos gathered Leo, promising to return tomorrow for his first real lesson. The boy signed goodbye to Nia with such enthusiasm that it made something in her chest ache. A good ache, like blood returning to a limb that had fallen asleep. When they were gone, Frank gestured for Nia to follow him into the office. It was small and cluttered, walls covered with tournament photos and certificates, a desk buried under paperwork and equipment catalogs. Sit, Frank said, dropping into his own chair with a heavy sigh. Nia sat, her posture straight, hands folded in her lap. I've owned this dojo for 15 years, Frank began. Built it from nothing. Tyler's been my head instructor for 3 of those years, and in that time, membership has doubled. He's brought in sponsorships, tournament wins, prestige. He's valuable to this business. Nia said nothing, just waited. But tonight, Frank continued, I watched him dismiss a child for being different. I watched him mock you for challenging that dismissal. And then I watched you dismantle him in about 90 seconds. He leaned back, studying her. So here's what I need to know. Who are you? I'm your janitor, Nia said. Bullshit, Frank replied bluntly. Janitors don't move like that. Janitors don't execute throws that clean. Janitors don't make third-degree black belts look like white belts. So I'll ask again. Who are you? Nia was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I'm someone who used to compete, who was good at it, who walked away and doesn't want to walk back. Past tense, you competed? Yes. What level? High enough that it doesn't matter anymore. Frank studied her, his expression shrewd. You're Paralympic, aren't you? I've been around martial arts long enough to recognize that caliber of training. And you're deaf, and you're... He stopped, his eyes widening slightly. Holy shit. You're Nia Brooks. The Nia Brooks. 3-time Paralympic gold medalist, world champion, the Phantom of Brooklyn. The old nickname hit Nia like a physical blow. She'd earned it during her competitive years, the Phantom, because she'd been so quiet, so unassuming outside the mat, that people forgot she was there until she destroyed them in competition. I was, Naya said carefully. I'm not anymore. You disappeared, Frank said. 4 years ago, right at your peak, there were rumors, injury, burnout, family problems. Nobody knew what happened. And you've been cleaning my dojo this whole time? I needed work. You needed a janitor. It was simple. Simple, Frank repeated, shaking his head in disbelief. A Paralympic champion working as a janitor because it's simple. He leaned forward. What happened, Nia? What made you walk away? That's not relevant to tonight. Maybe not, but it's relevant to what happens next. Frank pulled out a folder from his desk drawer, flipped it open. I've been thinking about expanding our programs, adding an adaptive martial arts track for students with disabilities. I've got the space, but I've been looking for the right person to run it, someone with credibility, experience, and understanding of what those students need. Nia's stomach tightened. Frank, hear me out, he interrupted. What you did tonight, standing up for Leo, challenging Tyler's assumptions, proving that different doesn't mean less capable, that's exactly the energy this place needs. I want to offer you a position, real instructor role, not just cleaning. You'd build the program from scratch, teach students like Leo, maybe even run some regular classes if you're willing. I can't, Nia said immediately. Why not? Because I left that world for a reason. Because teaching means being visible. And being visible means people asking questions I don't want to answer. Because... She stopped, the words catching in her throat. Frank waited patiently. Because the last time I let myself care about martial arts, about competition, about being good at something, it destroyed me, Nia finished quietly. And I can't survive that again. What destroyed you? Frank asked gently. Nia stood abruptly. I should finish cleaning. There's still equipment to put away. Nia, thank you for the offer, she said, her voice carefully controlled. But I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I'll teach Leo privately, after hours. But I can't be more than that. She left the office before Frank could argue further, her hands trembling slightly as she retrieved her cleaning cart. The dojo was empty now, silent except for the hum of the ventilation system. Nia went through the familiar motions, wiping down mats, organizing equipment, sweeping floors, letting the routine calm her racing thoughts. But tonight, the routine felt different, contaminated by visibility, by the past reaching forward to reclaim her. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hey, it's Marcus. Someone already posted video of the match. It's got 50K views and counting. People are asking who you are. Just wanted you to know. Then another text, this one with a link. Nia clicked it despite knowing she shouldn't. The video was shot from someone's phone in the crowd. The angle wasn't great, but it captured the essential moments. Tyler's overconfident attack, Nia's perfect throw, the lightning-fast transition to the choke, Tyler's hand slapping the mat in submission. The comments section was exploding. Hundreds of people speculating, analyzing, demanding to know who the mystery woman was. Several comments included screenshots from old Paralympic coverage, comparisons between competition footage of Nia from 4 years ago and tonight's match. Someone had figured it out, multiple someones actually. That's Nia Brooks. Holy shit, the Phantom came out of retirement to destroy some arrogant sensei. Where has she been? Why is she working as a janitor? This is the greatest comeback story ever. Nia closed the video and pocketed her phone. Her heart was racing, her carefully constructed walls crumbling faster than she could rebuild them. She finished cleaning in a daze, locked up the dojo, and drove home on autopilot. Her apartment was small and sparse, a studio in a building that had seen better decades, furnished with the bare minimum. She'd moved here 3 years ago when she'd needed to disappear, when the weight of her grief had become so crushing that even her own name felt like a burden. She sat on the edge of her bed, still in her GI, and let herself remember. 4 years ago, she'd been at the top of her game, Paralympic champion, media darling, inspiration to deaf children everywhere. She'd had sponsors, opportunities, a future mapped out in gold medals and endorsement deals. She'd also had Sarah, her coach, and her partner. Sarah, who'd believed in Nia when no one else did. Sarah, who'd learned sign language before they ever dated. who'd fought every institution that tried to limit Nia's potential, who'd been in Nia's corner for every victory and every defeat. Sarah, who'd died in a car accident 3 weeks before Nia's 4th Olympic trials. The grief had been instantaneous and total. Nia had withdrawn from the trials, from competition, from everything. She'd disappeared from public life so completely that people assumed she'd retired, burned out, or suffered some career-ending injury. The truth was simpler and more devastating. She'd lost the only person who'd made her feel like being exceptional was worth the cost. For 3 years, she'd existed in this self-imposed exile, cleaning floors and avoiding mirrors, trying to find some version of herself that could function without Sarah's presence. She'd thought she'd succeeded. She'd thought the woman who'd needed martial arts to feel alive had died along with Sarah. But tonight, watching Tyler dismiss Leo with such casual cruelty, something had cracked open. The fighter she'd buried had clawed her way to the surface, demanding to be heard, and now Nia didn't know how to bury her again. Her phone rang. She almost didn't answer, but the caller ID showed Mrs. Santos. "Hello?" "Nia, I'm so sorry to call so late," Mrs. Santos said, her words rushing together. "But I just got a message from Tyler. He's saying he's going to formally protest tonight's match, claim you have an unfair advantage because of your competitive background, and that Leo still can't join the class until it's resolved. I don't know what to do." Nia's jaw tightened. "Tell him to file whatever protest he wants. It won't change the outcome. Leo comes to class tomorrow." "But what if Tyler refuses to teach him? What if this makes things worse?" "Then Tyler breaks his word in front of everyone who witnessed our agreement," Nia said. "And he proves that his ego is more important than his integrity. Either way, Leo deserves to be there." Mrs. Santos was quiet for a moment. "The internet is going crazy, you know. People are posting old videos of your competitions. They're calling you a legend. Is it true? Were you really a Paralympic champion?" "Yes," Nia said simply. There was no point in denying it anymore. "Then why are you working as a janitor?" "Because champions are just people," Nia said. "And sometimes people need to disappear for a while to figure out how to keep living." "I'm sorry," Mrs. Santos said softly. "Whatever you went through, whatever made you need that, I'm sorry. And I'm sorry we pulled you back into the spotlight when you were clearly trying to avoid it." "You didn't pull me anywhere," Nia said. "I chose to step forward, for Leo, and I'd make the same choice again." They said goodbye, and Nia set down her phone. Sleep felt impossible. Her mind kept replaying the match, Tyler's fury, Frank's offer, the comments section dissecting her life. She changed out of her gi and went for a walk, letting the cold night air clear her head. The city was quieter at this hour, the chaos of day muted into distant traffic and the occasional siren. She walked without destination, her feet carrying her through familiar streets. She ended up at a small park she'd discovered during her first month of exile. There was a bench beneath a streetlight where she'd spent countless nights, processing grief in the only way she knew how, by sitting with it, refusing to run even when every instinct screamed to flee. Tonight, though, the grief felt different. Still present, still heavy, but no longer suffocating. Sarah had loved Nia's competitive fire, had encouraged it even when it meant long separations for training camps and international competitions. She would have hated seeing Nia diminish herself, hide herself, pretend to be less than she was. "I don't know how to do this," Nia said aloud, her voice strange in the empty park. She signed as she spoke, a habit from years of ensuring Sarah could always understand her. "I don't know how to be visible again without you here to make it feel safe." The night offered no answers. But sitting there, Nia realized she didn't need the night to answer. She needed to answer for herself. Tomorrow, Leo would walk into Sunset Valley Martial Arts expecting someone to fight for his right to belong. Tyler would be there, wounded and vengeful, looking for ways to reclaim his dominance. Frank would be watching, evaluating, hoping Nia might become something more than his janitor. And Nia would have to decide who she was willing to be. The Phantom of Brooklyn had disappeared 4 years ago, buried under grief so profound it had seemed permanent. But tonight, for 90 seconds, she'd returned. The question now was whether that return was a brief anomaly or the beginning of something new. Nia stood from the bench and walked home slowly, her mind made up even if her heart still trembled with uncertainty. She would show up tomorrow. She would teach Leo. And if Tyler wanted a war, she would give him something better. She would show him what strength really looked like. Not dominance, not ego, but the courage to use your gifts to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Sarah would have approved. By the time Nia reached her apartment, dawn was breaking over the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. She showered, changed, and sat down with her laptop. She opened YouTube and typed in her own name. The search results were overwhelming. Dozens of old competition videos, interviews, highlight reels from her Paralympic runs. She clicked on one at random, a match from her second gold medal performance. The Nia on screen was younger, fiercer, completely immersed in the combat. She moved with a precision that looked almost supernatural, dismantling opponents with techniques so clean they seemed choreographed. The crowd roared with every throw, every pin, every submission. That Nia had been fearless. That Nia had believed in her own exceptionalism with the kind of certainty that could move mountains. This Nia, the one watching from a sparse apartment at dawn, wasn't sure she could be that person again. But maybe, she thought, she didn't need to be. Maybe the Nia who'd fought for Leo last night was someone different. Someone who'd learned that strength without purpose was just performance, but strength with purpose could change lives. Her phone buzzed with an incoming call. Marcus Chen, again. "It's 6 in the morning," Nia said when she answered. "I know, I'm sorry," Marcus said, sounding breathless. "But you need to see this. Tyler posted a video. Just look at his Instagram." Nia pulled up Tyler's profile with a sense of dread. The most recent post, uploaded 20 minutes ago, showed Tyler in his home gym, working through combinations with renewed intensity. The caption read, "Real champions don't make excuses. They get better. Round 2 coming soon. Op redemption. Must never settle. Sunset Valley." Strong. The comments were already flooding in, split between supporters praising his determination and critics calling him a sore loser. "He's positioning this as a training montage," Marcus explained, "making himself the underdog hero who's going to overcome adversity. It's actually kind of genius. He's reframing his loss as the beginning of his comeback story." "Let him," Nia said tiredly. "If that's what he needs to process this, fine." "You don't understand," Marcus pressed. "He's building hype for a rematch. He's going to make this into an event, sell tickets, get sponsors involved. He's turning your private confrontation into a public spectacle." "I already told him no rematch." "Yeah, well, he's banking on public pressure changing your mind. If enough people want to see it, if the narrative gets big enough, refusing starts to look like you're afraid." Nia closed her eyes. She'd wanted one night, one moment of standing up for what was right. Instead, she'd stepped into quicksand, and every movement just pulled her deeper. "What would you do?" she asked Marcus. He was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, I'd embrace it. You're already exposed. Your past is already out there. Fighting it just makes you look like you're hiding. But if you lean in, if you control the narrative instead of letting Tyler control it, you turn this into something bigger than his ego." "I don't want something bigger," Nia said. "I just want to teach a kid martial arts." "Then teach him publicly," Marcus suggested. "Document Leo's journey. Show people what inclusive martial arts looks like. Make this about him, not about you and Tyler. Take the story Tyler's trying to build and transform it into something meaningful." The idea settled in Nia's mind, finding purchase. Tyler wanted a redemption arc where he was the hero. But what if Nia built a different story? One where Leo was the protagonist, where the real victory wasn't about who won a fight, but about who got to participate. "I need to think about this," Nia said. "Think fast," Marcus replied. "Because this is moving whether you're ready or not." He hung up, leaving Nia alone with the weight of decisions she'd never wanted to make. She looked at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, really looked for the first time in years. She saw the lines that grief had carved, the exhaustion of hiding, the flicker of something that might be hope or might be terror. "Who are you?" she asked her reflection, signing the question with deliberate precision. The woman in the mirror didn't answer, but Nia thought maybe, finally, she was ready to find out. She arrived at the dojo that evening an hour before Leo's scheduled session, her stomach tight with anticipation. The parking lot was already busier than usual for a Tuesday night, and Nia recognized the pattern immediately. People coming to see if the rumors were true, if the viral video woman was really the legendary Phantom of Brooklyn working as a janitor. Inside, the energy had shifted. Students who'd previously ignored her now tracked her movements with poorly concealed curiosity. Parents whispered to each other near the waiting area. Even the teenage white belts who usually horsed around during breaks stood straighter when she passed. Tyler was already on the mat, leading warm-ups with exaggerated intensity. He didn't acknowledge Nia's arrival, but his shoulders tensed when she entered, and his voice got slightly louder as he barked instructions to his class. Frank emerged from his office, caught Nia's eye, and gestured for her to join him. She followed reluctantly, aware of how many people were now watching their every interaction. "We need to establish some ground rules," Frank said once they were behind closed doors. "This situation is spiraling faster than I anticipated. I've had 3 journalists call asking for interviews with you. Tyler's threatening to quit if I give you any official teaching role. And I've got parents both demanding you teach their kids and demanding I fire you for causing drama." "I didn't cause anything," Nia said quietly. "I defended a child's right to learn." "I know that, you know that. But perception is reality in this business." Frank rubbed his temples wearily. "Look, I meant what I said yesterday about wanting you to build an adaptive program, but I can't have a civil war breaking out in my dojo. Tyler's making noise about going to the Regional Martial Arts Association, claiming you competed under false pretenses or some bullshit." "The match was his idea," Nia reminded him. "He set the terms. He lost. What false pretenses could there possibly be?" "He's saying you deliberately concealed your competitive background to sandbag him, that you hustled him, essentially." Frank held up a hand before Nia could respond. "I know it's garbage, but he's loud and he's connected, and he's spinning this into a narrative where he's the victim of some elaborate setup." Nia felt something cold settle in her chest. "What do you need from me?" "Honestly, I need you to be visible, really visible, not hiding in the background anymore." Frank leaned forward. "The truth is your best defense here. Let people know who you are, what you've accomplished, why you stepped in for Leo. Control your own story before Tyler controls it for you." "I don't want to control any story," Nia said. "I just want to teach a kid who deserves a chance." "Then teach him where people can see it," Frank suggested. "Not hidden away after hours. Bring him into the regular class environment. Force Tyler to either honor the agreement or publicly refuse to teach a deaf child in front of witnesses. Make him choose between his ego and his integrity out in the open." The strategy was sound, but terrifying. Nia had spent 3 years perfecting invisibility. Now Frank was asking her to step into a spotlight that felt like an interrogation lamp. "I'll think about it," she said finally. "Think fast. Leo and his mom will be here in 30 minutes. Frank stood, signaling the conversation was over. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you're here. This place has needed someone to challenge its assumptions for a long time. I just wish it didn't have to be so complicated." Nia returned to the main floor and began her usual cleaning routine, trying to ignore the stares and whispered conversations. Tyler finished his class and dismissed the students, but several lingered, clearly hoping to witness another confrontation. Then Leo arrived, practically bouncing with excitement, his mother following with a mixture of hope and apprehension written across her features. "Miss Nia," Leo signed enthusiastically. "I brought my own gi. Mom bought it yesterday. Can I put it on? Can we start training?" Nia knelt to his level, signing carefully. "Yes, you can put on your gi, but I want to talk to you about something first. How would you feel about joining the regular class instead of training separately with me?" Leo's eyes widened. "The regular class? With all the other kids? But Sensei Tyler said—" "Sensei Tyler and I made an agreement," Nia signed. "You get to train here, with everyone else, learning the same things they learn. Would you like that?" Leo looked at his mother, then back at Nia. His hands moved slowly, carefully. "What if they make fun of me? What if I can't understand what Sensei Tyler is teaching? Then I'll be there to help translate," Nia signed. "And if anyone makes fun of you, they'll answer to me. Deal?" Leo's smile could have lit the entire dojo. "Deal!" Mrs. Santos touched Nia's shoulder as Leo ran to the changing room. "Are you sure about this? Tyler looked ready to murder someone yesterday. I don't want Leo caught in the middle of whatever's happening between you two. Leo won't be in the middle, Nia said. He'll be where he belongs, learning martial arts with his peers. Tyler can either teach him or explain to everyone watching why he won't. You're putting a lot of faith in public pressure. I'm putting faith in the fact that Tyler cares about his reputation, Nia corrected. And right now, with everyone watching, refusing to teach Leo makes him look exactly like what he is, someone who values his comfort over his principles. The advanced class began filtering in, and Nia noticed immediately that there were more students than usual. Word had spread. People wanted to see what would happen next in the saga that had blown up their quiet neighborhood dojo. Tyler noticed too. His expression flickered between annoyance and calculation as he counted heads. More students meant more witnesses, which meant more pressure to maintain his image as a principled instructor. Leo emerged from the changing room in his new gi, white and crisp, slightly too big because he'd probably grow into it. He walked onto the mat with visible nervousness, found a spot in the line of students, and stood at attention. The other students stared, some with curiosity, some with confusion, a few with what looked like welcome. Tyler's jaw tightened. He looked at Leo, then at Nia, then at the crowd of parents now gathering along the walls with their phones ready to record every moment. "Class, attention!" Tyler's voice cut through the murmur of conversation. Everyone snapped to focus. "We have a new student joining us today, Leo Santos. Tyler paused, and Nia could see him wrestling with how to frame this. He's deaf, which means he communicates primarily through sign language. We're going to make some accommodations to ensure he can participate fully. It was the bare minimum of acknowledgement, delivered with all the warmth of a legal disclaimer, but it was acknowledgement nonetheless. Several parents exchanged surprised looks. Nia suspected they'd expected Tyler to refuse outright, to create a scene. "Leo, welcome to Sunset Valley Martial Arts," Tyler continued, his tone carefully neutral. "We'll do our best to make sure you understand everything we're teaching." Leo bowed formally, his movements precise and eager. Tyler returned the bow with mechanical politeness. The class began with warm-ups. Tyler led them through the usual routine, jumping jacks, push-ups, core work. Leo watched the other students and mimicked their movements. His form surprisingly good for a complete beginner. Nia positioned herself near the back of the class where she could see both Leo and Tyler. She caught the boy's eye during a water break and signed, "You're doing great. Just keep watching and copying." Tyler moved into basic techniques, demonstrating a front kick. He showed it once, explained the mechanics verbally, then had the class practice. Leo watched intently, but his execution was tentative, uncertain without the verbal cues the other students received. Nia stepped forward, caught Tyler's attention and signed, "May I help him with the technique?" Tyler's expression hardened, but with 24 phones potentially recording, he nodded curtly. "Sure. Go ahead." Nia moved to Leo's side and signed the instructions Tyler had given verbally, breaking down each component of the kick. Chamber your knee, extend from the hip, strike with the ball of your foot, return to chamber, step down with control. Leo's face lit up with understanding, and his next attempt was dramatically improved. "Good," Nia signed, again focusing on balance. They worked through several repetitions, Nia providing the signed instructions that allowed Leo to match what the other students were learning. Around them, the class continued, but Nia noticed several students watching their interaction with interest rather than judgment. A girl about Leo's age, her orange belt marking her as an intermediate student, approached during the next water break. "Can you teach me some sign language?" she asked Nia, "so I can talk to Leo?" The question caught Nia off guard. Yes, I can teach you some basics." "Me too," another student chimed in, a boy with a green belt. "It seems cool." Tyler overheard this exchange, and something in his expression shifted. Not quite acceptance, but perhaps the beginning of recognition that inclusion didn't have to mean chaos. The class progressed through various techniques. Tyler taught, Nia translated, and Leo absorbed everything with the intensity of someone who'd been told he couldn't have this and was determined to prove everyone wrong. By the end of the session, he was sweating and grinning, his GI marked with the evidence of hard work. As students lined up for the final bow, Tyler did something unexpected. He called Leo to the front of the class. Leo showed a lot of heart today, Tyler said, his voice stiff but not unkind. Learning martial arts is hard enough when you can hear every instruction. Doing it without that advantage requires extra focus and dedication. I want everyone to acknowledge that. The class applauded. Leo's face flushed with pride and happiness. Mrs. Santos, watching from the sidelines, had tears streaming down her cheeks. Tyler caught Nia's eye across the mat, and in that moment something passed between them. Not friendship, not even respect exactly, but perhaps a grudging acknowledgement that she'd forced him to be better than his worst instincts. After class, as students filed out and parents collected their children, Marcus Chen approached Nia with his phone in hand. "That was masterful," he said quietly. "You didn't fight him. You didn't argue. You just put him in a position where being decent was easier than being cruel." "I just translated instructions," Nia said. "You know it was more than that." Marcus showed her his phone screen. "This video from tonight has already been shared 300 times. People are calling it wholesome content and what martial arts should be about. Tyler's redemption arc narrative is getting drowned out by the story of Leo's first class." Nia felt something twist in her stomach. "I didn't want this to become a viral thing." "Too late for that," Marcus said, not unkindly. "But maybe that's okay. Maybe people need to see this. Need to see what happens when someone actually fights for inclusion instead of just talking about it." Leo bounded over, his hands moving excitedly. "That was amazing. I learned so much. Can I come back tomorrow? Can I come every day?" Nia smiled despite her discomfort with the attention. "Classes are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So yes, you can come to all of those if your mom agrees." "She already said yes," Leo signed. "This is the best day ever." Mrs. Santos joined them, her expression grateful but concerned. "Thank you for what you did tonight. But I saw how Tyler looked at you. This isn't over for him, is it?" "Probably not," Nia admitted. "But it doesn't matter. Leo gets to train, that's what matters." After they left, Nia began her cleaning routine, trying to return to the familiar rhythm that had sustained her for 3 years. But tonight it felt different, contaminated by visibility, by people knowing who she was, by the impossibility of returning to comfortable invisibility. Frank appeared at her elbow. "That was well done. You handled Tyler perfectly." "I didn't handle him," Nia said. "I just made it easier for him to do the right thing than to do the wrong thing." "Still counts as handling him." Frank hesitated, then continued. "I've been thinking about the adaptive program. What if we started small, just 1 class a week, specialized instruction for kids like Leo who need different teaching approaches? You design it, teach it, build it, however you think works best." Frank: "Before you say no, consider this. Tonight proved there's demand for it. I've already had 4 parents ask me about enrolling their kids with various disabilities who've been told martial arts isn't for them. You could change that. You could build something Sarah would be proud of." The mention of Sarah's name made Nia's breath catch. "How do you know about Sarah?" "I looked you up after our conversation yesterday," Frank admitted. "Found old interviews where you talked about your coach, your partner. Found the news about the accident." His expression softened. "I'm sorry for your loss, and I'm sorry if bringing her up was out of line. But I think she'd want you to use your gifts, not bury them." Nia's hands trembled slightly as she gripped the handle of her cleaning cart. "You don't know what she'd want." "You're right, I don't," Frank agreed. "But you do. So ask yourself, would Sarah want you spending the rest of your life hiding, or would she want you changing lives the way you changed Leo's tonight?" He walked away before Nia could respond, leaving her alone with a question that cut deeper than any physical technique. She finished cleaning in a daze, her mind replaying Frank's words, replaying Sarah's voice from memories that grew fainter with each passing year. Sarah had always pushed Nia to be more, to claim space, to refuse to make herself smaller for other people's comfort. But Sarah had also been there to catch Nia when visibility became overwhelming, when the pressure of being a symbol rather than a person threatened to crush her. Without Sarah, Nia had collapsed under that weight. She didn't trust herself not to collapse again. She locked up the dojo and walked to her car, only to find Tyler leaning against the driver's side door. "We need to talk," he said. Nia's body tensed automatically, reading his posture for threat. But Tyler looked more exhausted than aggressive. his earlier bravado stripped away to reveal something rawer underneath. About what? Nia asked carefully. About the fact that you humiliated me in front of my entire community, and I can't even be properly angry about it because you were right. Tyler's voice was bitter. About Leo, about me, about everything. I wasn't trying to humiliate you, Nia said. I was trying to protect a child. I know, that's what makes it worse. Tyler laughed without humor. If you'd been wrong, I could hate you. If you'd been showing off or trying to prove something, I could dismiss you. But you were just right. And being called out for being wrong by someone I dismissed as beneath my notice is possibly the most effective ego check I've ever received. Nia said nothing, waiting to see where this was going. I've been thinking about what you said, Tyler continued, about building my identity on being the best, about experiencing challenges as existential threats. And the thing is, you're not wrong. I've spent my entire adult life measuring my worth by how many people I can beat, how many trophies I can win. When you beat me, it didn't just hurt my pride. It felt like you'd erased my entire value as a person. That's not how value works, Nia said quietly. I'm starting to realize that. Tyler pushed off from her car, creating more space between them. I'm not apologizing for refusing to teach Leo initially. That was wrong, and I need to apologize to him and his mother directly. But I need you to understand, I wasn't trying to be cruel. I was trying to avoid the discomfort of adapting my teaching methods, which is maybe worse than being cruel, actually. It's more honest, at least, Nia offered. I want that rematch, Tyler said abruptly. Not for revenge, not to reclaim my dominance or whatever narrative people think I'm building, but because I need to know if I can actually compete with someone at your level, if I can push myself past my current limitations. Tyler, I know you said no, he interrupted, and I'm not going to pressure you publicly or make this into some media circus, but I'm asking person to person. Will you fight me again? Properly this time, when I'm prepared, when I've actually trained specifically to face you. Nia studied him carefully. The request sounded genuine, stripped of the ego that had driven his initial challenge. But agreeing meant stepping further into visibility, meant accepting that she couldn't go back to being invisible even if she wanted to. Why does it matter? She asked. Why do you need to prove you can compete with me specifically? Because you're the best person in this building, Tyler said simply. Possibly the best person in this city. And I've spent 3 years teaching here without ever realizing that the person I should have been learning from was mopping floors around me. That's a humbling thing to realize. And I don't know how to process it except by testing myself against the standard I didn't know existed. I'm not a standard, Nia said. I'm just someone who trained at a high level once. You're a 3-time Paralympic gold medalist, Tyler countered. You were ranked number 2 in the world in your weight class when you retired. That's not trained at a high level once. That's elite. That's the kind of opponent I'd pay to study under, if I had any sense. The admission clearly cost him something. Nia could see the effort it took for Tyler to acknowledge her superiority, to position himself as the student rather than the master. I'll think about it, she said finally. But not soon. And not as a public spectacle. If I agree, it's a training session between 2 martial artists, not a pay-per-view event. Deal, Tyler said immediately. And thank you for what you did tonight, for translating for Leo. You didn't have to help me save face like that. I wasn't helping you save face, Nia corrected. I was helping Leo learn. You just happened to benefit from it. Tyler nodded, accepting the distinction. One more thing. That adaptive program Frank mentioned, if you build it, I'd like to volunteer. Not as an instructor, at least not at first, but as someone learning how to teach differently, how to be better. The offer surprised Nia more than anything else Tyler had said. You're serious? Completely. I've built a career on being the best fighter in the room. Maybe it's time I learned how to be the best teacher instead. Tyler started walking toward his own car, then turned back. For what it's worth, I looked up your old competition footage. You were extraordinary. I'm sorry whatever happened made you walk away from it, but I'm glad you were here when Leo needed someone to fight for him. He left before Nia could respond, his taillights disappearing into the evening traffic. Nia sat in her car for a long time, processing the conversation. Tyler's transformation, if it was genuine and not just strategic positioning, suggested that sometimes people could grow past their worst impulses when confronted with undeniable evidence of their failures. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Just FYI, someone created a GoFundMe to raise money for your adaptive martial arts program. It's already at $8,000. You might want to get ahead of this before it gets even more out of control. Nia clicked the link he'd sent. Sure enough, there was a crowdfunding page titled Help Nia Brooks Build an Inclusive Dojo, with a description that painted her as a heroic figure standing up for disabled children's rights to learn martial arts. The page included screenshots from viral videos, old competition footage, and testimonials from people she'd never met calling her an inspiration. This was spiraling beyond her control. What had started as one moment of defending one child was metastasizing into a movement she'd never asked to lead. She drove home, her mind churning with questions she couldn't answer. In her apartment, she pulled out a box from the back of her closet, the one she hadn't opened in 3 years. Inside were medals, certificates, photos from competitions, newspaper clippings praising her achievements. At the bottom of the box was a letter, Sarah's handwriting, given to Nia the night before Sarah left for the trip she'd never returned from. Nia had read it once the day after Sarah's funeral and then sealed it away because the pain of Sarah's words was too much to bear. Now, sitting on her apartment floor surrounded by the evidence of who she used to be, Nia opened the letter again. The words were familiar and devastating. My love, I know you sometimes wonder if all this, the training, the sacrifice, the public scrutiny, is worth it. I want you to know that it is. Not because of the medals or the records or the recognition, though those matter, but because every time you step onto a mat, you prove to some child watching that being different doesn't mean being less. You prove that deaf doesn't mean limited. You prove that the people society overlooks can be extraordinary. That's worth more than all the gold in the world. Never forget that your strength isn't just for you. It's for everyone who needs to see that someone like them can be powerful. I love you for your heart first, your skills second. Always remember which matters more. Forever yours, Sarah. Nia's vision blurred with tears. She'd forgotten that part, that her success had never been just about personal achievement. Sarah had understood what Nia sometimes lost sight of. That visibility, however uncomfortable, was a gift she could give to others who needed to see themselves reflected in positions of strength. She thought about Leo's face tonight, the pure joy radiating from him as he learned techniques alongside his peers. She thought about the other 4 parents Frank mentioned, the ones asking about enrolling their children in an adaptive program. She thought about Sarah's words, "Your strength isn't just for you." Nia closed the letter carefully, placed it back in the box, and made a decision. The next morning, she called Frank before her shift began. "I'll do it," she said when he answered. "The adaptive program. 1 class a week to start, Saturdays at 10. I'll design the curriculum, I'll teach it, I'll build it right. But I have conditions." "Name them," Frank said, sounding both surprised and pleased. "First, no publicity stunts, no media appearances unless I approve them. This isn't about building my brand or telling my sob story. It's about giving kids opportunities." Agreed. Second, Tyler participates as a student, not an instructor. If he wants to learn how to teach adaptively, he learns by doing, not by taking over. Also agreed. Third, we accept any child who wants to learn, regardless of their disability or their family's ability to pay. We figure out scholarships, we work with the fundraising that's apparently happening without my permission, but we never turn away a kid who wants to be here. That's a big commitment, Nia. It's a necessary one. Sarah used to say that martial arts saved her life when she was a kid being bullied. She believed everyone deserved access to that same salvation. I'm going to honor that belief. Frank was quiet for a moment. Your partner, Sarah, she was your coach too, wasn't she? She was everything, Nia said quietly, and she'd be furious with me for hiding for 3 years instead of using what she taught me to help others. Then let's build something she'd be proud of, Frank said. When can you start? This Saturday. Advertise it however you want. Adaptive martial arts, all abilities welcome, taught by... She hesitated on the words, then pushed through. Taught by Nia Brooks. Saying her own name in that context, claiming her identity rather than hiding from it, felt like stepping off a cliff. But it also felt like finally starting to heal. She spent the week preparing in ways she hadn't prepared for anything in 3 years. Nia pulled out old training notebooks filled with Sarah's handwriting, lesson plans they'd developed together for youth programs, adaptation strategies for students with different needs. Each page was a ghost of conversations past, Sarah's voice echoing through margins filled with notes like, "Make it fun first, effective second," and "Every student has a superpower, find it." By Friday night, Nia had a complete curriculum for the first month of classes. She'd also fielded 17 phone calls from parents, answered 43 emails, and politely declined 6 interview requests from local news stations who'd caught wind of the viral Janitor story. The attention was suffocating, but she reminded herself why she was doing this every time the urge to retreat became overwhelming. Saturday morning arrived with unseasonable warmth, sunlight streaming through the dojo windows like a spotlight she couldn't escape. Nia arrived 2 hours early, needing the silence to center herself before the chaos began. She arranged the mats carefully, set up modified equipment, created visual instruction cards with diagrams for students who might need them. Frank appeared at 9:30, carrying boxes of new training gear. "Donated," he explained, setting them down. "The GoFundMe hit $23,000. People are invested in this story, Nia. In you." "They're invested in the idea of me," Nia corrected. "The sanitized version where I'm just a humble hero. They don't know the messy parts." "Maybe that's okay," Frank said. "Maybe people need heroes more than they need messy reality." Sarah would disagree. She always said the messy parts were where real growth happened. She sounds like she was wise. "She was relentless," Nia said, and realized she was smiling. "She wouldn't let me get away with anything, not self-pity, not false modesty, not hiding behind excuses. When I told her I was afraid of being a token, of being reduced to inspiring deaf girl, she said, 'Then prove you're more than that by being undeniably excellent.' So that's what I did. And then you stopped. And then I had no reason to be excellent anymore," Nia finished quietly. "Excellence without purpose is just performance. Sarah was my purpose." Frank seemed to sense he was approaching dangerous emotional territory. He changed subjects smoothly. "Tyler will be here. He's been here every day this week, training like a man possessed. I think your match broke something open in him. Or it just wounded his pride and he's looking for redemption. Maybe both can be true." Parents began arriving at 9:45, bringing children of various ages and abilities. Nia watched them filter in, saw the hope mixed with apprehension on faces that had probably been told no far more often than yes when it came to physical activities. A girl in a wheelchair, maybe 11, her eyes bright with nervous excitement. A boy with Down syndrome clutching his mother's hand. Twin sisters, one of whom wore hearing aids and kept signing to her sister. Leo, of course, bouncing with energy and waving enthusiastically when he spotted Nia. By 10 o'clock, there were 14 children and twice as many parents crowding the dojo. Nia felt the weight of their expectations like a physical pressure on her chest. These families had come because of viral videos and inspirational narratives, because they'd been sold a story about a champion who understood their struggles. What if she couldn't deliver? What if 3 years away from teaching had eroded her skills? What if she disappointed them? Tyler appeared at her elbow, startling her. "You look terrified," he observed. "I am terrified," Nia admitted. "Good. Terror means you care about doing this right." He paused, then added, "For what it's worth, I've watched your old teaching footage this week. You were born for this. You just forgot for a while." The unexpected encouragement from Tyler steadied her somehow. If he could swallow his ego enough to acknowledge her abilities, she could swallow her fear enough to honor Sarah's belief in her. Nia stepped onto the mat and signed for everyone's attention. Her voice, rusty from years of minimal use, carried across the space. "Good morning. My name is Nia Brooks, and I'll be your instructor for this adaptive martial arts class. Before we begin, I need everyone to understand something important. This is not a pity program. This is not where we lower standards or pretend effort equals achievement. This is where we modify methods to ensure every student can access the same rigorous training anyone else would receive." She paused, making eye contact with each child. "I'm deaf. I've been deaf my entire life. When I was your age, I was told martial arts weren't for me, that I'd be a liability, that I should find something safer, quieter, more appropriate. I ignored those people and became a 3-time Paralympic champion. Not because I was special, but because I found teachers who believed that different methods could achieve the same excellence. A few parents were already tearing up. Nia pushed forward before the emotion could derail her. We're going to learn real techniques. We're going to work hard. We're going to respect each other and this space. And we're going to prove that the only limits that matter are the ones we accept for ourselves. Understood? The children nodded, some verbally agreeing, some signing, some using whatever communication method worked for them. The diversity of response was beautiful. Excellent. Let's begin with introductions. Tell me your name and one thing you hope to learn here. She moved down the line, learning about each student. Maya, the girl in the wheelchair, wanted to learn self-defense. David, the boy with Down syndrome, wanted to be strong like superheroes. The twins, Emma and Sophia, wanted to train together so Emma could feel included in something athletic. Each answer revealed a history of exclusion, of being told what they couldn't do rather than being shown what they could. When introductions finished, Nia divided them into groups based on mobility and learning style rather than age or ability. Tyler, true to his word, positioned himself as an assistant rather than a co-instructor, following Nia's directions without argument. They started with breathing exercises and awareness drills, techniques that required no specific physical capabilities, but built the mental foundation for everything else. Nia demonstrated how to use all available senses to read an environment, how to be present in your body regardless of that body's configuration. Martial arts isn't about the specific techniques, she signed and spoke. It's about understanding principles, balance, leverage, timing, distance. These principles work whether you're standing or sitting, whether you can hear or see or walk. We just apply them differently. She worked with Maya on leverage techniques from the wheelchair, showing how the chair itself became part of the defensive system rather than a limitation. She taught David combination patterns using color-coded targets and repetition, meeting him where his learning style thrived. She helped Emma develop visual cues to mirror her sister's movements so they could train in synchronization. Leo absorbed everything like a sponge, his earlier experience in regular class making him one of the more advanced students despite being new. Nia paired him with David, watching them communicate through demonstration and shared enthusiasm, language barriers dissolving in the universal grammar of movement. An hour into the class, something remarkable happened. The children stopped performing for their parents and started training for themselves. The self-consciousness faded, replaced by genuine engagement with the material. Sweat appeared on foreheads, breath came harder. Frustration at difficult techniques transformed into determination. Nia moved between students, making tiny adjustments, offering encouragement, pushing them slightly past their comfort zones without crushing their confidence. This was the teaching Sarah had trained her for, meeting each person exactly where they were and guiding them forward from that precise starting point. Tyler was proving surprisingly effective as an assistant. He took Nia's instructions and translated them for students who needed different explanations, demonstrated techniques from various angles, spotted students during balance drills with gentle competence. The man teaching today bore little resemblance to the arrogant sensei who'd dismissed Leo 2 weeks ago. During a water break, one of the mothers approached Nia. "I just want you to know, my daughter Maya has been told by 3 other martial arts schools that they couldn't accommodate her wheelchair. You've had her for 90 minutes, and she's already learned more than I thought possible." "She's learning what she was always capable of," Nia said. "She just needed someone to show her how." "It's more than that, though," the mother insisted. "You're showing her that her wheelchair isn't something to overcome. It's just a different starting point." That's powerful." Other parents echoed similar sentiments during the break, their gratitude almost overwhelming. Nia deflected as much as she could, redirecting attention to the children's efforts rather than her teaching. But she couldn't escape the reality that she was changing lives today in ways that extended far beyond teaching techniques. The second half of class focused on practical applications. Nia taught them how to set boundaries verbally and physically, how to recognize threatening situations, how to escape holds and create distance. Every technique was adapted for every student's specific needs. The curriculum flexible enough to meet 14 different bodies and minds where they actually existed rather than where some standardized model suggested they should be. As class wound down, Nia gathered everyone for final remarks. "You all worked incredibly hard today. You should be proud of yourselves. But I want you to remember something. What we're doing here isn't about becoming fighters. It's about becoming people who can't be made small by others' limitations of imagination. Society will tell you what you can't do. Your job is to prove them wrong through dedicated action, not angry reaction. Understood? A chorus of agreements, signed and spoken. See you next week. Practice the breathing exercises daily. And remember, you belong here. As families filed out, several parents lingered to ask about enrollment, private lessons, future class times. Frank handled the administrative questions while Nia deflected requests for media interviews and personal appearances. She'd agreed to visibility, not celebrity. Tyler approached after everyone else had left. That was masterful teaching. You read each kid's needs instantly and adapted in real time. I've been doing this for years and I can't pivot that smoothly. Different skill sets, Nia said. You're excellent at teaching standardized curriculum to typical students. I'm trained in meeting atypical students where they are. Neither is better, just different applications. That's generous, considering I refused to teach Leo because adapting felt hard. Tyler sat down on the edge of the mat. I've been thinking a lot this week about what you said, about building my identity on being the best. And I realized something. I became an instructor because I couldn't compete at the Olympic level, and teaching was a way to still be important in martial arts, but I never actually developed the humility teaching requires. Teaching requires ego death, Nia said quietly. You have to genuinely believe your students' growth matters more than your reputation. Sarah taught you that? Sarah embodied that. She was a championship-level judoka who could have competed for decades, but she retired early to coach because she believed developing 10 excellent fighters was more valuable than being one excellent fighter. Nia's voice caught slightly. She poured everything into her students, into me especially. And when she died, I couldn't see the point of continuing without her, couldn't imagine being excellent for my own sake. What changed? Tyler asked gently. Leo, Nia said simply. Watching him get dismissed for being different reminded me that Sarah's philosophy wasn't just about me. It was about using whatever gifts you have to clear paths for people coming behind you. I've been so focused on my own grief that I forgot I could honor her by living the principles she taught me. Tyler nodded slowly. Can I ask you something? That rematch I mentioned, I know I framed it as wanting to test myself against you. But the real reason is I need to know if I can lose without it destroying me. The first match, I lost, and it felt like dying. I need to prove to myself that I can pursue excellence without needing to be the best. Does that make sense? Perfect sense, Nia said. And yes, I'll give you that rematch. Not next week, not next month. But when you've put in the work to actually compete at my level, I'll face you again. Not as teacher versus student, but as two martial artists helping each other grow. Relief washed over Tyler's features. Thank you. And I want to apologize properly to Leo. Not the corporate non-apology I gave in class, but a real one. Will you translate for me? He'll be here Wednesday. You can apologize then. They sat in companionable silence for a moment, two people who'd been enemies a week ago finding common ground and shared commitment to growth. Marcus Chen stuck his head through the door. Nia, there's someone here to see you. Says she's a journalist, but seems different from the usual vultures. Nia sighed, preparing to deliver another polite refusal, but the woman who entered behind Marcus immediately changed her calculation. She was middle-aged, black, wearing a prosthetic leg visible below her knee-length skirt, and moving with the confidence of someone who'd long since stopped apologizing for taking up space. Nia Brooks, the woman said, extending her hand. I'm Vanessa Price from The Adaptive Athlete. We're a publication focused on Paralympic sports and disability athletics. I covered your competitive career, and I've been trying to find you for 3 years. Nia shook her hand warily. I'm not interested in interviews about my retirement. I'm not interested in your retirement either, Vanessa said. I'm interested in what you're building here, the adaptive program, the inclusion work, the way you're changing the martial arts culture from the inside. That's a story worth telling. There are hundreds of adaptive programs, run by abled instructors trying to be charitable, Vanessa interrupted. Not many run by Paralympic champions who understand both elite performance and lived disability experience, and none that went viral for publicly dismantling an ableist instructor. She smiled. Your news, Nia. The question is whether you control your narrative or let others control it for you. Nia glanced at Tyler, who shrugged as if to say your call. She turned back to Vanessa. I don't want this to be about me. I want it to be about the students, about changing access, about honoring Sarah's legacy by continuing the inclusion work she started, Vanessa finished. I know about Sarah. I interviewed you both after your second gold medal. She was remarkable, brilliant coach, fierce advocate, completely committed to expanding access. And when she died, the adaptive martial arts community lost one of its strongest voices. The mention of Sarah in present, active terms rather than past sympathetic ones caught Nia off guard. You remember her? I remember her telling me that traditional martial arts would either adapt to include disabled athletes or become irrelevant within a generation, Vanessa said. She was passionate about proving that elite athletic training and adaptive methods weren't contradictory. That's what you're doing here, isn't it? Finishing what she started? Nia felt tears threatening and blinked them back fiercely. I don't know if I'm finishing anything. I'm just trying to give some kids opportunities they deserve. That's exactly what she would have said too, Vanessa observed. Look, I'm not asking you to bare your soul or commodify your grief. I'm asking you to let me document what's happening here so other dojos, other instructors, other communities can see what's possible. Sarah believed in spreading methodology, not hoarding it. Let me help you do that. The appeal to Sarah's philosophy was strategically brilliant and completely sincere. Nia could feel herself wavering. I need to think about it, she said finally. Fair enough. I'll be in the area until tomorrow. Here's my card. Vanessa handed over contact information. Whatever you decide, what you're doing here matters. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. After Vanessa left, Tyler whistled low. She's good. She found exactly the pressure point that would make you consider this. Sarah would have liked her, Nia admitted. Would have appreciated someone who cut through bullshit to focus on methodology and impact. So you're going to do the interview? I don't know yet. Part of me thinks she's right, that documenting this helps spread the model, but another part thinks the moment I let myself become a story, I stop being a person and become a symbol, and symbols can't grieve or fail or be human. Symbols also inspire change at scale, Tyler pointed out. Individual teaching changes individual lives. Documentation and publicity change systems. Nia looked at him sharply. When did you become philosophical about media strategy? When I spent a week watching my attempt to control my narrative blow up in my face, Tyler said wryly. I tried to make myself the hero of a comeback story, and it just made me look petty. You're not trying to control anything, you're just doing the work. That authenticity is why people care about this story. Before Nia could respond, her phone rang. Mrs. Santos, sounding agitated. Nia, I'm so sorry to bother you, but something's happened. Leo came home from school yesterday with a black eye. Some older boys were mocking him for being deaf, and when he stood up for himself, they shoved him down. He's devastated. He's saying he doesn't want to go back to school, doesn't want to go anywhere where people can hurt him. Nia's chest tightened. Is he okay physically? The eye looks worse than it is, but emotionally, Nia, he's falling apart. He keeps signing that he wishes he was normal, that he's tired of being the kid everyone picks on. I don't know how to help him. Bring him to the dojo, Nia said immediately. Not for class, just bring him. I need to talk to him. Are you sure? I don't want to impose. Bring him, now. 30 minutes later, Leo arrived with his mother. The boy's left eye was swollen and purple, his spirit clearly more bruised than his face. He wouldn't meet Nia's eyes, his hands hanging limp at his sides instead of flying through signs with his usual enthusiasm. Nia knelt in front of him, waited until he finally looked up. Then she signed, Tell me what happened. Leo's hands moved slowly, painfully. These boys at school always make fun of me, call me deaf and dumb, say I sound like a robot when I try to talk. Yesterday I told them to stop and they laughed. One of them pushed me. I pushed back. Then they all jumped on me and the teacher only saw me pushing, so I got in trouble too. Did you tell your teacher what they said to you first? What's the point? Leo signed, his movements sharp with anger. Nobody cares. They never care. I'm always the problem because I'm different. I'm tired of being different. I'm tired of fighting just to exist. Nia felt something crack open in her chest. recognition of pain she'd carried at his age. At every age, the exhaustion of constantly proving your humanity to people who didn't want to see it. She signed carefully, making sure he caught every word. Do you know why I really stepped in when Sensei Tyler said you couldn't train here? Leo shook his head. Because when I was 9 years old, a PE teacher told my mom I shouldn't participate in sports because I might get hurt and wouldn't be able to hear warnings. My mom fought to keep me in class, but that teacher made it clear every single day that I was an inconvenience, that my presence made things harder for everyone else. And I believed her. I thought being deaf made me less valuable, less worthy of taking up space. What changed? Leo signed. I met a coach named Sarah who told me that people who try to make you small are revealing their own limitations, not yours. She said the real weakness is refusing to adapt, refusing to grow, refusing to see value in people who are different. She taught me that my deafness wasn't a deficiency. It was just a different way of experiencing the world, and different doesn't mean less. But it's hard, Leo signed, tears starting to fall. It's so hard being different all the time. I just want one day where I don't have to fight to be treated like everyone else. I know, Nia signed, her own eyes stinging. I know it's hard. I know it's exhausting. I know there are days when you wish you could just be invisible, just blend in, just not have to prove yourself over and over. But Leo, if you make yourself small to fit into other people's limited imagination, you lose something precious. You lose the truth of who you are. What if who I am isn't enough? The question broke Nia's heart. She took Leo's hands gently in hers. Who you are is more than enough. But the world isn't set up to see that yet. So people like us, we have to be loud in our existence. We have to take up space. We have to refuse to be invisible. Not because it's fair that we have to work harder, but because the kids coming after us deserve a world we've already fought to change. That sounds lonely, Leo signed. It is lonely sometimes, Nia admitted, but then you find your people, your team, the ones who see you fully and celebrate who you are instead of tolerating what you're not. And that makes the fight worthwhile. Tyler had been standing quietly in the corner, watching the signed conversation he couldn't fully understand. Now he stepped forward and spoke, addressing Leo directly, even though the boy couldn't hear him. Nia, will you translate something for me? Nia nodded, and Tyler continued. Leo, I owe you an apology. When your mom brought you here, I dismissed you before I even met you. I decided you'd be too difficult to teach because I was lazy and scared of having to change my methods. That was wrong. You deserved better. Every student deserves an instructor who sees their potential instead of their obstacles. I'm sorry I wasn't that instructor until Nia forced me to be better. Nia translated faithfully, watching Leo's expression shift from surprise to cautious acceptance. Tyler wasn't finished. Those boys who hurt you at school, they're doing what I did. They're making you small because your existence challenges their assumptions about what normal looks like. But you know what? Normal is bullshit. Normal is just what people who lack imagination use to exclude anyone who makes them uncomfortable. You keep being exactly who you are. Let them adapt or get left behind. When Nia finished translating, Leo managed a small smile. Thank you, he signed to Tyler. Mrs. Santos, who'd been watching from the doorway, approached Nia with red-rimmed eyes. How do I help him through this? How do I teach him resilience without telling him to just accept mistreatment? You teach him the difference between resilience and surrender, Nia said. Resilience is continuing to fight for your right to exist fully. Surrender is accepting less than you deserve to avoid conflict. You're already teaching him resilience by bringing him here, by demanding the school address the bullying, by refusing to let him believe he's the problem. What if it's not enough? What if he gets hurt worse next time? Then you fight harder. You document everything, you demand accountability, you make noise until someone listens, and you remind him every single day that his worth isn't determined by how other people treat him. It's inherent in his existence. Nia paused, then added, Sarah used to tell me that the world breaks everyone eventually, but some people become stronger in the broken places. Leo's breaking right now. Your job is to help him heal stronger. Mrs. Santos hugged Nia suddenly, fiercely. Thank you for seeing him, for fighting for him, for teaching him that different is powerful. After they left, Nia sat alone in the empty dojo, drained from the emotional weight of the conversation. Tyler had disappeared at some point, giving her privacy to process. Her phone showed a text from Vanessa Price. "I know you're still deciding about the interview, but I wanted you to see this." A link to an article from a disability advocacy blog titled "The Phantom Returns: How Nia Brooks is Changing Martial Arts Culture." Nia clicked reluctantly. The article detailed her viral match with Tyler, her adaptive program launch, and speculation about why she'd vanished from competition. It framed her as a tragic hero returning from exile to fight for inclusion, complete with quotes from parents whose children were already enrolled in her class. The comments section was mostly positive, but several stood out. "This is inspiration porn. Disabled people aren't your motivational stories. Why does she get celebrated for doing basic inclusion work that should be standard?" Paralympic athletes are always used as inspiration for abled people instead of being treated as regular athletes. The criticisms stung because they contained truth. Nia didn't want to be reduced to inspiration. She didn't want her grief commodified into a redemption narrative. She didn't want Leo and the other students treated as props in a story about her heroism. But she also understood that visibility created opportunities. That documentation spread methodology. That stories, even imperfect, complicated stories, could shift cultural assumptions about who deserved access to physical spaces. Sarah had navigated this tension constantly, accepting interviews and publicity she hated because they advanced the cause of adaptive athletics. "I'd rather be uncomfortable and effective than comfortable and useless," she'd said once, after a particularly invasive profile in a major magazine. Nia pulled out her phone and called Vanessa Price. "I'll do the interview," she said when Vanessa answered, "but on my terms. You don't mention Sarah's death in detail. You focus on methodology and systems change, not my personal tragedy. And you include critical voices, the people calling out inspiration porn, the ones questioning whether individual stories matter when systemic barriers remain. I won't participate in sanitized storytelling." "Done," Vanessa said without hesitation. "When can we start?" "Tomorrow, but I'm bringing Tyler and some of my students. This isn't a story about me. It's about what becomes possible when people choose growth over comfort." "Even better," Vanessa agreed. Nia hung up and sat in the quiet dojo, Sarah's voice echoing in her memory. "The broken places make you stronger." She was breaking open again, forced by circumstance and conscience to become visible in ways that terrified her. But maybe this breaking was different from the one that had shattered her 3 years ago. Maybe this time she was breaking open instead of apart. And maybe the light getting in would finally start to heal the wounds she'd thought were permanent. The interview took place the following afternoon in the dojo, natural light streaming through windows that Nia had cleaned 1,000 times without ever imagining she'd be the center of attention beneath them. Vanessa arrived with a photographer and a video crew, minimal but professional, and immediately put everyone at ease with her straightforward approach. "I'm going to ask questions. You answer honestly," Vanessa explained to the small group Nia had assembled. "If something feels wrong or exploitative, speak up. This story belongs to all of you, not to me." Besides Nia and Tyler, she'd invited Leo and Mrs. Santos, Maya and her mother, and Marcus Chen, who'd been present for the initial confrontation. Frank hovered in the background, equal parts proud and nervous about his dojo becoming the center of a narrative he hadn't anticipated. Vanessa started with the easy questions, establishing timeline and context, before moving into more challenging territory. "Nia, you disappeared from competitive judo 4 years ago at the peak of your career. The adaptive athletics community wondered what happened. Can you talk about that decision?" Nia had prepared for this question, but it still felt like swallowing glass. "I lost someone essential to my ability to compete. My coach and partner, Sarah Chen. She died unexpectedly, and without her, I couldn't find purpose in continuing, so I stopped." "Just like that? No farewell competition? No public statement?" "Just like that," Nia confirmed. "Grief doesn't wait for proper closure. I disappeared because existing in public felt impossible. Every interview, every competition, every moment in the spotlight reminded me of what I'd lost. So I found work where I could be invisible. Cleaning a martial arts dojo seems like an odd choice for someone trying to escape martial arts." It was proximity without participation, Naya said. I could be near the thing I loved without having to be the person I'd been. It felt safer than a complete break. Vanessa turned to Tyler. You were the head instructor here when Nia was working as a janitor. You never recognized her? Tyler's discomfort was visible, but he didn't shy away. I never looked at her long enough to recognize anyone. She was staff. I was an instructor. I'm ashamed to admit I probably spoke to her a dozen times in 3 years and never once actually saw her as a person with her own story. What changed that? She stood up for a student I'd dismissed, Tyler said, glancing at Leo. And when I challenged her credentials, she dismantled me in about 90 seconds. It was the most educational humiliation I've ever experienced. Educational how? It forced me to confront the fact that I'd built my identity on being the best person in any room I entered. When someone better existed and I'd been too arrogant to notice, it shattered that identity completely. I had to rebuild from scratch. And the person I'm rebuilding into is, I hope, someone who values growth over dominance. Vanessa made notes, then addressed Leo through Nia's translation. Leo, why did you want to learn martial arts? Leo's hands moved with careful deliberation as he signed his response. I wanted to be strong enough to protect myself and other people. I wanted to prove that being deaf doesn't mean being weak or helpless. I wanted to belong somewhere. And when Sensei Tyler initially said you couldn't train here, how did that feel? Leo's expression tightened. Like being told I wasn't good enough because of something I can't change. Like being punished for being born different. It felt like every other time someone decided my disability was too inconvenient for them to bother accommodating. But Nia fought for your right to be here. Why do you think she did that? Because she knows what it's like, Leo signed. She knows how much it hurts to be told you don't belong. And she's strong enough to make sure other people don't have to feel that hurt alone. Vanessa smiled gently at him, then turned to Maya. You use a wheelchair. What made you want to try martial arts? Maya's voice was clear and confident. Because every self-defense class I looked into said they couldn't accommodate me. Like needing a wheelchair meant I didn't deserve to learn how to protect myself. But Miss Nia showed me that my wheelchair isn't a limitation. It's just a different starting point. She taught me techniques that work specifically because I'm in a chair, not despite it. Can you give an example? Sure. Most people think being in a wheelchair makes you vulnerable because you're sitting down. But Miss Nia taught me that my chair gives me a stable base that's actually harder to knock over than someone standing. And the wheels let me create distance fast, which is the most important part of self-defense, getting away from danger. She turned what everyone else saw as a weakness into a strategic advantage. Mrs. Santos spoke up without prompting. Can I say something? My son came home from school last week with a black eye because kids were bullying him about being deaf. And his first instinct was to want to disappear, to make himself smaller, to wish he was normal. But after talking with Nia, he told me he's done trying to be normal. He said normal is boring and he'd rather be exceptional. That shift in thinking from seeing himself as broken to seeing himself as powerful, that's what Nia's teaching really does. Vanessa was scribbling notes rapidly. Nia, you've been quiet while everyone else talks about your impact. How does it feel to hear these stories? Overwhelming, Nia admitted. I didn't set out to change lives or build a movement. I just saw a kid being dismissed unfairly and couldn't stay silent. Everything else spiraled from that one moment. But it's not just one moment anymore, is it? Your adaptive program has a waiting list of 47 students. The GoFundMe has raised over $30,000. 3 other dojos in the region have contacted Frank about implementing similar programs. You've catalyzed systemic change. Sarah catalyzed it years ago, Nia corrected. She spent her entire coaching career arguing that adaptive methods and elite training weren't contradictory. She built curricula, trained instructors, fought with athletic associations to expand access. I'm just continuing work she started. She sounds remarkable. She was relentless, Nia said, and found herself smiling through the ache of memory. She believed that every barrier to access was a failure of imagination, not a reality of limitation. And she taught me that using your gifts to clear paths for others is the only kind of strength that actually matters. Vanessa let that sit for a moment before asking her next question. Some critics argue that stories like yours, disabled athlete overcomes adversity to inspire others are what's called inspiration porn, that they commodify disability to make abled people feel good without actually addressing systemic barriers. How do you respond to that? I agree with them, Naya said bluntly. My story shouldn't be inspirational because disabled people doing normal things isn't miraculous. It's just life. The fact that people find it remarkable that I can teach martial arts or that Leo can learn them says more about society's low expectations than about our achievements. So why participate in this interview if you think the framing is problematic? Because imperfect visibility is better than perfect silence, Nia said. Yes, these stories can be commodified. Yes, they can be used to avoid systemic change by celebrating individual success, but they can also show possibilities that people haven't imagined. They can give kids like Leo someone to see themselves in, and they can make instructors like Tyler question assumptions they didn't know they held. Tyler nodded in agreement. I needed my assumptions destroyed publicly. Private growth wouldn't have forced me to actually change my teaching methods or confront the culture I'd helped create here. The visibility made me accountable. Marcus spoke up from his position near the wall. Can I add something? I've trained here for 6 years, and the culture shift in the last 2 weeks has been dramatic. Students are asking questions about accessibility they never thought about before. Parents are bringing up inclusion in conversations about enrollment. The viral video didn't just change Nia's life or Tyler's, it changed what this community thinks is possible and necessary. Vanessa turned to Frank. As the owner, what's your perspective on all this? Frank stepped forward, clearly having prepared his thoughts. Honestly, I'm embarrassed it took a viral confrontation to make me examine our accessibility. I should have been proactive about inclusion instead of reactive, but I'm grateful for the wake-up call, and I'm committed to making this dojo a model for adaptive programming. We're in the process of installing visual alert systems for deaf students, modifying equipment for various mobility needs, and training all our instructors on adaptive teaching methods. That's expensive. It's necessary, Frank corrected. And frankly, the community support has been overwhelming. The GoFundMe money is going into facility improvements and scholarships. We've had volunteers offering everything from equipment donations to free sign language classes for instructors. When you create authentic change, people want to participate. Vanessa made more notes, then looked up with a slight smile. Nia, there's an elephant in the room we should address. Tyler challenged you to a rematch. Are you going to accept? The question hung in the air. Nia glanced at Tyler, who looked genuinely curious about her answer. Yes, Nia said finally, but not as a public spectacle, as a training exercise between two martial artists committed to pushing each other's growth. Tyler needs to know he can lose without it destroying his sense of self. I need to know I can compete without Sarah's presence and still find meaning in it. We both need to prove that ego can transform into something more valuable. When? When we're both ready. Could be months, could be a year. The timeline matters less than the intention behind it. Tyler smiled, the expression genuine and relieved. I've been training differently since our first match. Not to beat you, but to become someone capable of learning from you. That's a bigger goal than winning ever was. Vanessa finished her notes and set down a recorder. Last question for everyone. What do you hope people take away from this story? Leo's hands moved first. That different doesn't mean less. That we deserve space and respect and opportunities, not pity or inspiration points for abled people's social media. Maya added, that accessibility isn't a favor, it's a right. And that the real disability is a society that refuses to adapt. Mrs. Santos said that parents advocating for their children isn't being difficult. It's being responsible, and that sometimes it takes one person refusing to accept no to change an entire system. Tyler's answer was quiet but firm. That growth requires humility. That being the best at something is worthless if you're the worst at being human, and that sometimes the people you dismiss hold the lessons you most need to learn. Marcus offered that bystanders enable injustice, that witnessing something wrong and staying silent makes you complicit, and that speaking up might feel uncomfortable, but it's nothing compared to the discomfort of people being excluded. Frank said that businesses have a responsibility to evolve with their communities, that profit and principle can coexist, and that accessibility benefits everyone, not just people with disabilities. Vanessa turned to Nia last. And you? What do you hope people take away? Nia thought about Sarah, about Leo, about the 3 years she'd spent hiding from her own potential. She thought about the students in her adaptive class, about Tyler's transformation, about the possibility that broken places could become sources of strength rather than shame. I hope people understand that strength isn't about dominance or individual achievement, she said carefully. It's about using whatever power you have to protect people who can't protect themselves. It's about refusing to let others be diminished because accommodating them requires effort. And it's about honoring the people we've lost by continuing the work they started, even when it's terrifying. Her voice caught slightly on the last word, but she didn't look away from the camera. Sarah deserved to be honored publicly, not hidden away in private grief. Vanessa thanked everyone and began packing up her equipment. As people dispersed, preparing to return to their regular Sunday activities, Nia found herself alone on the mat for a moment. She thought about the woman who'd entered this dojo 3 years ago. Invisible, silent, convinced her best years were behind her. That woman had believed she had nothing left to offer, that her value had died with Sarah. She'd been wrong. The value hadn't died. It had just been waiting for the right moment to resurface, for the right child to need defending, for the right confrontation to catalyze transformation. Tyler approached, his expression thoughtful. Thank you for agreeing to the rematch, and for framing it the way you did, as mutual growth rather than redemption. I don't deserve that generosity. Everyone deserves the chance to become better than their worst moment, Nia said. Sarah taught me that. She believed people were works in progress, not finished products. You're proving her right. I wish I could have trained with her. From everything I've learned about her philosophy, she sounds like exactly the kind of teacher I needed years ago. She would have liked you, Nia said. Not the version of you who dismissed Leo, but the version you're becoming. She had a talent for seeing potential in people before they saw it in themselves. Like she saw in you? Like she demanded from me, Nia corrected with a small smile. Sarah didn't coddle. She pushed. She believed that compassion without accountability was just enabling, and that real love meant expecting people to be their best selves. Sounds intense? It was, but it was also the safest I ever felt, knowing someone believed in my excellence enough to demand it, not just hope for it. They stood in companionable silence, two people who'd been adversaries weeks ago finding unexpected common ground in shared commitment to growth. Frank called out from his office. Nia, can you come here for a minute? She found him at his desk, paperwork spread everywhere, looking both exhausted and energized. I've been running numbers on the adaptive program. With the GoFundMe money and the new enrollment, we can expand to 3 classes per week. Maybe even hire a second instructor to help you manage the load. I don't need help managing, Nia said automatically. I know you don't need it, but you deserve it. You can't pour from an empty cup, and you've been pouring nonstop for 2 weeks. Frank leaned back in his chair. I also want to offer you a formal position, head of adaptive programming, with a real salary, benefits, the works. You'd still have autonomy over curriculum and methodology, but you'd have institutional support and resources. I don't know if I'm ready for that level of commitment. Nia, you're already committed. You're already building something remarkable. The only question is whether you'll do it with support or keep trying to carry everything alone. The words hit harder than they should have. Carrying everything alone had been her mode for 3 years. After Sarah's death, Nia had convinced herself that independence was strength, that needing help was weakness. But watching Leo learn to ask for translation support, watching Tyler learn to request coaching on adaptive methods, watching her students collaborate rather than compete, maybe she'd been wrong about independence too. Can I think about it? She asked. Take all the time you need, but the offer stands. Frank smiled. For what it's worth, I think Sarah would be proud of what you're building. Not just the program itself, but the way you're building it, centered on student needs rather than instructor ego. Nia nodded, not trusting her voice, and left the office. The dojo was empty now, everyone gone home to process the interview and the weekend's events. She moved through her cleaning routine one last time, but it felt different now. Less like hiding and more like honoring the space that had sheltered her through her darkest years. Her phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. Preliminary article draft attached. Let me know if anything needs correction before publication. And thank you for trusting me with your story. Naya opened the attachment and read through Vanessa's work. The article was fair, comprehensive, and refreshingly critical of inspiration porn narratives while still capturing the genuine transformation happening at Sunset Valley. Vanessa had centered the students' voices, quoted the critics who questioned whether individual stories mattered, and positioned Nia's work as part of a larger movement toward accessibility rather than as exceptional heroism. It was exactly what Sarah would have wanted: methodology over mythology, systems change over individual celebration. She texted back, "It's perfect. Publish when ready." The response came immediately. "Goes live tomorrow morning. Prepare for attention." Nia pocketed her phone and looked around the dojo one more time. Tomorrow the article would publish. More students would enroll, more journalists might call. The visibility would intensify, the demands on her time would increase, and the quiet invisibility she'd hidden behind for 3 years would be permanently shattered. She should feel terrified. Instead, she felt something closer to readiness. Monday morning arrived with the article's publication, and as Vanessa had warned, the attention was immediate. The piece went viral within hours, shared across disability advocacy networks, martial arts communities, and mainstream social media. Nia's phone became unusable, overwhelmed with messages and notifications. But this time, she didn't face it alone. Tyler fielded media requests, directing serious inquiries to Frank and dismissing exploitative ones. Marcus created a social media presence for the adaptive program, so Nia didn't have to manage her personal accounts. Frank hired an administrative assistant specifically to handle the enrollment surge and donation coordination. By Wednesday evening, when Leo arrived for his regular class, the dojo had been transformed. New visual alert systems flashed when the door opened. Modified equipment sat ready for students with various mobility needs. 3 new instructors, including Tyler, wore shirts identifying them as adaptive trained. Leo noticed immediately, his eyes going wide as he signed to Nia. "This all happened because of me?" "This happened because you deserved it," Nia signed back. "And because once people saw what was possible, they wanted to be part of making it real." Class that night was different too. Tyler taught alongside Nia, his methods now incorporating the adaptive techniques he'd spent 2 weeks learning. He signed basic instructions to Leo without needing Nia's constant translation. He demonstrated techniques from multiple angles for students with different visual processing needs. He'd transformed from the instructor who dismissed difference to one who celebrated it. During a water break, Leo approached Tyler directly and signed, "Thank you for learning to teach me." Tyler looked to Nia for translation. When she provided it, his expression shifted through several emotions before landing on something like humility. He signed back, movements clumsy but sincere. "Thank you for teaching me to be better." Leo beamed, correcting Tyler's hand positioning with the gentle authority of someone comfortable in his own expertise. The image of them collaborating, student-teaching instructor, both growing together, was exactly what Sarah had envisioned when she'd argued for adaptive programming years ago. After class, Mrs. Santos pulled Nia aside. "I need to tell you something. Leo's school called today. The boys who gave him the black eye? Their parents saw the viral video, recognized Leo, and apparently had serious conversations with their sons about bullying and disability. The boys apologized to Leo today, in front of the whole class, and asked if he could teach them some sign language." How did Leo respond? He said yes, but only if they promised to actually be friends, not just feel guilty. Mrs. Santos laughed through tears. "He's developing boundaries I didn't know 9-year-olds could have." "That's your influence." "That's his strength," Nia corrected. "I just gave him permission to claim it." Over the following weeks, the adaptive program expanded beyond what Nia had imagined possible. Students came from across the city, then from neighboring towns, then from other states. Some families relocated specifically to access the programming. Other dojos reached out asking for training on implementing similar models. Nia found herself teaching instructors how to teach, spreading Sarah's methodology the way Sarah had always intended. She created training materials, recorded demonstration videos, consulted with programs across the country. The work was exhausting and exhilarating in equal measure. Tyler proved invaluable during this expansion. His ego sublimated into genuine service. He took on administrative tasks Naya hated, managed difficult parent conversations, and became an advocate for accessibility in the broader martial arts community. The transformation was so complete that Nia sometimes forgot he'd been the antagonist in this story's beginning. 2 months after the initial confrontation, Tyler approached Nia after class with nervous energy. "I think I'm ready," he said simply. "Ready for what?" "The rematch. Not because I think I'll win, but because I've done the work to lose with dignity, to compete at your level and accept whatever outcome happens without it destroying me." Nia studied him carefully. The man standing before her was genuinely different from the one who challenged her in anger and humiliation. This Tyler had been broken down and rebuilt with stronger materials. "Saturday morning," she said, 6 a.m., before classes start. "Just us, Frank as referee, and anyone else we specifically invite. No media, no viral videos, no public spectacle." "Perfect," Tyler agreed. "Thank you." That Saturday, a small group gathered in the pre-dawn darkness. Frank, Marcus, Leo, and Mrs. Santos, Maya, and her mother, people who'd been part of this transformation from the beginning. The energy was different from the first match, less performative, more sacred. This wasn't about dominance or revenge. It was about two martial artists testing themselves against each other in pursuit of mutual growth. They bowed formally. Frank called the match to begin. This time, Tyler came in patient and strategic rather than aggressive and overwhelming. He'd studied Nia's patterns, trained specifically to counter her techniques, built a game plan around managing rather than dominating, and he was better, significantly better. The match lasted nearly 4 minutes, an eternity in high-level competition, with Tyler successfully defending against several of Nia's signature techniques. But Nia was still Nia, still a 3-time Paralympic champion, still operating at a level few could reach regardless of preparation. When Tyler finally overcommitted to a takedown attempt, she capitalized with devastating efficiency, transitioning through a sequence of techniques so smooth they looked choreographed, ending with Tyler trapped in an armbar that left him no option but submission. He tapped immediately, no hesitation, no shame. When they stood and faced each other, Tyler was smiling. Not the bitter, wounded smile of someone hiding pain, but genuine satisfaction. "Thank you," he said simply. "That was the best I've ever performed, and it still wasn't enough. That's actually freeing. Knowing I gave everything and you were just better. It means I can stop measuring my worth by winning and start measuring it by growth." "You've grown tremendously," Nia said. "Sarah would say that's the only victory that actually matters." They bowed to each other, and Leo started clapping, the sound picked up by everyone present until the dojo rang with applause for both competitors. Later, after everyone else had left, Nia sat alone on the mat, processing what had happened. She'd competed again. Really competed, not just defending herself, but engaging fully with the sport she'd loved and abandoned. And Sarah's absence, while still painful, hadn't been paralyzing. Nia had fought and won, and felt Sarah's presence in the techniques they developed together, the philosophy that guided every movement, the belief that strength existed to protect rather than dominate. The grief hadn't disappeared, it probably never would, but it had transformed from something that crushed her into something that connected her to purpose larger than personal pain. Her phone showed a message from Vanessa. "Follow-up article published today. Wanted you to see it before the notifications get overwhelming again." The new piece documented the program's expansion, included interviews with students and families, and positioned Sunset Valley as a model for systemic change. But what caught Nia's attention was the final paragraph. When asked what she's learned through this process, Brooks was characteristically direct. That hiding from pain doesn't heal it. That using your gifts to serve others is the only thing that makes grief survivable. And that the people we lose live on through the work we continue in their name. My partner Sarah believed everyone deserved access to strength. Building that access is how I keep her alive. In a world that often treats disability as limitation and grief as weakness, Brooks is proving that our broken places can become our strongest foundations, if we're willing to build on them rather than hide them. Nia read the words 3 times, feeling something settle in her chest. Sarah lived on in every student who learned that different wasn't less, in every instructor who chose adaptation over exclusion, in every family who fought for their child's right to belong. The dojo door opened. Frank entered with coffee and what looked like resignation paperwork. I know you've been avoiding this decision, he said, handing her a cup. But the adaptive program needs a formal director. The expansion is happening whether you're ready or not. So I'm going to make this easy for you. Sign the paperwork accepting the position, or watch me hire someone else who won't do it half as well as you would. That's manipulative, Naya observed. That's pragmatic, Frank corrected. You've already done the hard part, building the program, proving the model, creating the culture. Now you just need to formalize what already exists. Nia took the paperwork and read through it carefully. The salary was generous. The benefits were comprehensive. The role description gave her complete autonomy over curriculum and methodology while providing institutional support and resources. It was everything she needed to make this work sustainable rather than consuming. She signed her name, the movement feeling like both an ending and a beginning. Welcome to the official staff, Frank said, shaking her hand. Now you're contractually obligated to stop cleaning toilets. I like cleaning toilets, Nia said. It was meditative. Then meditate on how many more students you can serve now that you're not spending 20 hours a week mopping floors. He had a point. Over the following months, Sunset Valley Martial Arts became nationally recognized for its adaptive programming. Other dojos implemented similar models. Athletic associations updated their accessibility requirements. Instructors sought certification in adaptive teaching methods. And at the center of it all was Nia, no longer invisible, no longer hiding, no longer convinced her value had died with Sarah. She still grieved. She still had hard days when Sarah's absence felt fresh and devastating. But she'd learned to carry grief alongside purpose, to let both exist without one destroying the other. Leo continued to train, his confidence growing with every class. The bullying at school had stopped after his classmates saw what he was capable of. He'd become a leader among his peers, the kid who taught others sign language and stood up for students who got picked on. Maya expanded from self-defense to competitive adaptive judo, her wheelchair-based techniques so innovative that Nia submitted them to Paralympic training programs as case studies. Tyler eventually competed again, not to prove dominance but to test his growth. He lost in the first round and handled it with grace, spent the rest of the tournament studying other competitors' techniques, came home excited about what he'd learned rather than devastated by defeat. And one Saturday morning, exactly 1 year after that first confrontation, Nia stood in front of her adaptive class and realized something profound. She was happy. Not the manic happiness of distraction or the fragile happiness of denial, but the deep, sustainable happiness of meaningful work. She thought Sarah would approve. After class, she drove to the cemetery for the first time since the funeral. She'd avoided it for 3 years, unable to face the reality of Sarah's absence made permanent in stone. But today felt different. Today she had stories to share. She sat cross-legged in front of Sarah's grave and signed, speaking the words aloud simultaneously. I know you can't answer, but I need to tell you what's been happening. Remember that adaptive program you always wanted to build? I'm building it. It's messy and complicated and sometimes overwhelming, but it's real. We've got 47 students now, 3 other dojos implementing the model, and I'm training instructors across the country on your methodology. The wind rustled through nearby trees, carrying the scent of early autumn. I met a kid named Leo who reminded me why this work matters, why you fought so hard for accessibility. He's 9 and deaf and completely fearless, and he deserves every opportunity we can create for him. Naya's hands trembled slightly, but she pushed forward. I had to fight for his right to train, literally fight. I took down an instructor who dismissed him. You would have loved it, would have critiqued my technique afterward and made me drill the setup 100 times. She smiled through tears. I'm not okay without you. I don't think I'll ever be okay without you, but I'm becoming functional again, purposeful, connected to something larger than my own pain. Her voice broke. You were right about everything, about using strength to protect others, about accessibility being a right, not a favor, about broken places becoming foundations if we're brave enough to build on them. Nia sat in silence for a long time, letting herself feel the grief fully without trying to escape it. Then she stood, pressed her hand to Sarah's headstone, and signed one final message. Thank you for teaching me that strength isn't about winning, it's about making sure everyone gets to fight. She drove back to the dojo, where students were already arriving for the afternoon session. Leo waved enthusiastically when he saw her. his hands flying through signs describing something exciting that had happened at school. Tyler was setting up equipment, moving with the quiet efficiency of someone who'd learned to serve rather than perform. Maya was practicing throws with her adaptive training partner, both of them laughing when they messed up the timing. And Nia stepped onto the mat she'd cleaned 1,000 times as invisible background noise and claimed her place at its center as the teacher Sarah had trained her to become. The Phantom of Brooklyn had finally come home. Not to hide, not to perform, but to build the future Sarah had imagined, one student, one technique, one transformed life at a time. The work would continue, the grief would persist, but so would the growth, the connection, the purpose. And in the end, that was enough, more than enough. It was everything.